5 minutes. Okay, so hello. So my name is Jonathan Freundlich, and I'm currently a postdoc with Avishai Dekel at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And so today I am going to talk about an observational program, the FIPS program, which notably aims at describing star formation and the interplay between star formation and molecular gas reservoirs at different redshifts. So this is a collaboration work that involve many different people. Some of them are present in this room. And it's on the French side, notably Françoise Combe, and Philippe Salomé, and Linda Tacconi, Reinhard Genzel at MPA Garching as part of the main collaborators. I don't have a... So just I would like to start a little bit with the motivation of the project, which is to try to probe star formation and the evolution of star formation across cosmic time as from the perspective of the molecular gas reservoirs. So here you have this famous plot from Maddow and Dickinson. Oops. Okay. Where you can see, which shows the star formation rate, cosmic star formation rate density as a function of redshift, and you can see a clear star formation peak between redshift 1 and 3, and a subsequent drop by an order of magnitude. And here on the right, you have the main sequence, which is plotted in terms of Cerseic index, and so you can see in 3 different redshift beams how the star formation rate on the main sequence decreases also by an order of magnitude. And so what is important here is the fact that about 90% of the cosmic star formation history took place on this main sequence. Hence, this program that aims at describing star formation on the main sequence or around the main sequence at different redshifts. So the FIPS programs provide a statistical sample of about 70 main sequence galaxies at different redshifts. And these galaxies are observed in molecular gas through the CO rotational lines at the IRM Cathode-Bure NOEMA interferometer. And it's a detection survey, so most galaxies are just detected, but some of them were also observed in a high resolution. So this is the different samples of the combined FIPS and FIPS2 samples. So in 3 main redshift bins, which correspond roughly to here the winding down of star formation. So below redshift 1, the peak epoch of star formation, where you can see in blue the first FIPS program and in red the FIPS2 targets, and finally the building up of galaxies above redshift 2. So all the sample is drawn from relatively well understood parent samples. So notably Cosmos, Kendall's 3 HST fields in Good-North, Cosmos and Aegis fields. And the idea is to have a relatively homogeneous scatter of an homogeneous coverage of the main sequence, both in stellar mass and in star formation rate. So there is no morphological selection, which enables to study the influence of morphology. And it also enables to study effects such as environment or the potential effects of AGNs. It is working? No, I don't think it's working. So to start with, I think that one of the main important results of this survey, but which goes beyond this survey, is the establishment of extremely strong constraints on the dependencies of the depletion time and the gas fraction as a function of redshift, stellar mass, offset from the main sequence, so this parameter which is here that we often call delta MS, and potentially also on radius. So this is work that was notably done by Reinhard and Linda in these 2 papers, and which uses FIPS data for the CO observations. And so, but goes also beyond with dust measurements of the molecular gas masses. And what I would like to say is that despite the fact that there are many other measurements, the FIPS2 measurements are relatively important in terms of leverage in redshift for the CO part of these relations. So here you have the redshift dependency of the depletion time on the main sequence and of the molecular gas to stellar mass ratio on the main sequence. So you can see relatively shallow decrease of the depletion time with redshift, while the gas fraction increases by a relatively large factor, and which was one of the main results of the first FIP survey. That is to say that the molecular gas mass evolution scales with the and explains in large part the diminishing star formation rate since redshift 2. Here you have the residual dependency as a function of the offset from the main sequence with these two trends, which can be explained in terms or interpreted in terms of compaction mechanisms. So this is a paper from Sandro, where you can explain these trends by the fact that galaxies on the main sequence are confined within the scatter of the main sequence by cycles of compaction, where gas is channeled towards the center of the galaxies. The depletion time decreases, so star formation increases. The gas fraction increased above the main sequence. So that was the trend that we could see in the previous plot. Then depletion at the center of the galaxy. So with an increase of the depletion time, together with a decrease of the gas fraction at the center, and thus cycle of compaction, depletion, until the final quenching occurs. So this was, I think, one important result from the FIPS program. And now I would like to focus more on the low redshift sample. That means the molecular gas during the winding down of star formation. So you can see here some examples of the sample with the HST images. And so we carried out FITS, a bulge disk decomposition, to be able to assess the effect of morphology. These are the detections that we have, and you can already see that there are different types of morphologies. To here, spiral arms, a bar, and here I'm showing some other types of morphology. There is also some significant amount of bulge galaxies. So to summarize this, we have here about 60 to 60 detections over 61 targets. So this very high detection rate is also due to the fact that we aim at having a statistical sample. So we we're looking for high detection rate so that we don't leave some of the sources out of the sample. 5 detections are more marginal. And so this is what the morphological study roughly gives. As you can see, there are a relatively high number, 20% of barred galaxies also, apparently. And so if we compute the average or median depletion time and gas fraction, these are the numbers that we get. And these numbers are in excellent agreement with the scaling relations that I just mentioned that were obtained for a much larger number of galaxies. So in this plot, these numbers are compared with the coal gas sample, which is also a CO sample at low redshift, and the first FIPS program, which was at higher redshift, so between redshift 1 and 2. And so as you can see, we have intermediate values which correspond relatively well to with the evolution that we expect. So in terms of scaling relations, I think it is relatively interesting to see that within this relatively limited sample at a specific redshift, we still observe these scaling relations in terms of here delta ms, so offset from the main sequence. Here's a function of stellar mass, and the residual as a function of radius. And so this is, here I'm comparing the subsample at low redshift with the big sample from Tacconi et al. 2017. You can see that the agreement that the trends are visible within the subsample, which tend to show that these scaling relations and validate the assumption that these scaling relations are independent of redshift, and that in each redshift bins, and at least in this limited redshift bins, we do observe these dependencies. Since I'm talking about the depletion time, we can also view this in a Kennicott-Schmidt diagram, which is the star formation rate surface density as a function of the molecular gas surface density. And this is the resulting plot, so an extremely linear trend that fits well with measurements at other redshifts. So the points here correspond to the coal gas data, and the triangles to the FIPS at a higher redshift. And one thing I would like to mention about this plot is the fact that here we took the disk size to characterize and calculate the surface densities, and by doing so, we reduce significantly the scatter on the Kennicott-Schmidt relation as compared to when we take the total half-light radius, which is relatively logical because the disk size is the size relevant for star formation. And to finish with, this is maybe a bit more preliminary. We tried to see how different parameters relevant to star formation were evolving with the bulge to total disk ratio. So here in the first plot, we see a very relatively logical correlation between bulge growth. So this is the bulge to total ratio as a function of stellar mass, and the resulting evolutions in the total specific star formation rate and gas to stellar mass ratio, so which are mostly due to the evolution of the stellar mass. But more interestingly, we see no correlation in terms of gas mass inside the galaxy while the bulge assembles. So if you assume an evolution from low bulge to total ratio to high bulge to total ratio, so bulge growth, this would indicate the fact that while the bulge forms, gas is coming in and there are inflows onto the disk that maintain the gas mass relatively constant while the bulge assembles. Furthermore, here we plotted the stellar mass on in the disk, so from the bulge to total ratio, so an estimate, and we see that this is actually decreasing with the bulge to total ratio, which could indicate the fact that, again, if we see this as an evolutionary sequence, while the disk assembles, some of the stars from the disk actually contribute to the formation of the bulge. So this could be due to migration of clumps, for example, due to bar instabilities and different processes. Finally, we tested the evolution of the depletion time with the bulge to total ratio, and we found, again, no correlation, while morphological quenching would have made us expect some correlation with the depletion time being higher when the bulge to total ratio is high. So we see no trend, but there might be some selection effects here in the sense that we are selecting galaxies that are on the main sequence and thus that are star forming. And so maybe some of the leverage due to quiescent galaxies is not available here. And so this needs further studies. So these are the main things that I said here. And so to finish with, I would like to mention that we are doing some follow-up observations with ALMA, notably to obtain resolved information about star formation in such galaxies, and which will be related also to the morphology and maybe the fate of the star forming regions. Thank you. So there was, I think, this plot here, this one. So this is the gas to stellar mass ratio as a function of the bulge to total. And this actually, basically, it's also enclosed in these two plots that the gas mass remains relatively constant while the stellar mass increases. The yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Suggests that there's a very close connection between the specific self-formation rate and the available gap. So that although the depletion time is several gigayears, the time scale for the self-formation rate responding to the available gas is much shorter. Otherwise, if it was a big, large exertion of gas change that
But precisely the gas supply seems to be relatively constant, isn't it? So maybe it's related to this. Okay, so maybe we should talk, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Jonathan. Now we're going to move on to talking about the phase structure.
Okay, thanks very much. It's great to be back here. So I'm going to sort of go back a little bit to what we were talking about this morning.